Sometimes you talk to people who work for an organization and they say, it just doesn't feel right what's happening here. And then you ask them, do you know what's going wrong? And they say, it just doesn't feel right. Sometimes it is not very specific. However, sometimes people can give you very specific examples of what goes wrong when it comes to leadership. And often when leaders are not accepted, the reason is they show inconsistencies in their work as a leader. And we're going to talk about exactly that today. I brought a couple of examples with me today, 3 examples in total. However, I'm not going to mention the name of these companies because the task of this podcast is not to talk down on certain companies. When it's in press already, of course, I'm going to mention the names because it's already publicly known. However, we focus on the content, not talking down on organizations here. And often when people say, the leaders here don't really work for me. Often they say, these people do X, Y, Z, while they expect something else from us. And often you hear one phrase, one rule for them, another one for us. Or they say, one rule for us and another one for them. So we have a couple of cases at the moment where you see that people behave in a very bad way, in a very inconsistent way. They expect something from others, while at the same time, they do not align for the greater good. Not even talking about the tennis player, Novak Djokovic, who thinks he can immigrate to the US while being not vaccinated. Boris Johnson, who now had to admit if he does it or not is a different aspect. But Boris Johnson now, we have the proof, we have the evidence that his lockdown party happened with an invite. There was an email leak which said BYOB. It was an invite, BYOB for the international listeners, bring your own booze. So you bring your own drinks to a party during lockdown, at the height of lockdown, while he told everyone to stay at home, not leave the house. They had a little party at number 10 Downing Street in the UK. And often people complain that many politicians get away with different aspects, different misdemeanors without proper punishment or even any consequences. And again, it's not about punishment. It is simply about showing the right consequences. And now we look into 3 very specific cases. One case is a mid-sized company, and the company decided the whole organization will exchange their company cars. They will go for e-mobility, so electricity instead of using fuel, except their sales leader, a man who says, I am going to have a car ran on fuel. And when he was asked why he needs a car which is running on fuel, and burning fossil fuel is for sure not the most sustainable concept, and also not a great example when a whole company signs up for sustainability, claims it for themselves, and then one of the most senior people in the organization says, I need something else. And maybe there is a reason, but he says, he is not, and then I'm not going to mention the word he said, but he used a slur which refers to gay people. So he is not and then he used a slur for gay people as a justification for not having an electronically powered car. And of course, the email then got leaked, and it got huge problems in the organization and even in public in that region when this came to public. We're going to talk about how to do it better later in this podcast. Number 2, the issue number 2, a pharmaceutical company had a new guideline in place, and the guideline said every meeting is done in 4-star hotels, not 5-star hotels anymore, 4-star hotels, because that was considered reasonable accommodation. And in my opinion, you can live very well in 4-star hotels or meet there. However, their sales team then had a meeting in a massive 5-star hotel. And of course, people wondered, why do we have this briefing? Why do we have all this e-learning? Why do we have all these emails and PDFs and everything we have to sign when straight after they go to a 5-star hotel? And we're going to look into the details of that in a minute. And the problem number 3 is that often leaders have a mentality which simply very openly communicates to people, accept it. Life is how life is. Sometimes you're a leader, sometimes you're not. And some people simply have more rights or different rights than you. It reminds us a bit of someone saying, we are all equal, but some people are more equal. Or when you have seen the movie Madagascar, where King Julian said, it's nothing personal, we are just better than you. So that, of course, is not a sustainable way how to lead. But now we focus on all these 3 different cases and how to do it better. So case number 1, where the person says, I'm not going to have an electronically powered car. I'm not going for e-mobility. I have a car powered by burning fuel. So first, step number one, the statement that this person made was straightforward homophobic. These people have to be removed. You can offer them two ways. One is the very American British way, where they say they now suspended the contract and it takes a week to do the investigation, and after that normally they offer the person to leave by himself or herself, in this case himself, and the person says my position became untenable and leaves by themselves. If they refuse to leave, they get fired. People who make homophobic statements have to leave the organization. Otherwise, because we are talking here about diversity, inclusion, and equal rights, if you do not stick to that principle, no one is going to listen to you in the future, because you simply said, this is a salesperson, we need the salesperson, and we simply say human rights are important, but let's face it, revenue and profit is more important. And that clearly shows where your values are. Many people do not want to work for such values. But besides that, it could be so much easier, because when you look at the business model of that organization, you could easily say that someone, for example, sometimes when you look at for example, how far can you go with a car based on e-mobility? Let's say 300 miles, 400 miles. With that model, they choose probably around 400 miles. And there might be days where this senior leader has to drive further because their clients were not in main metropolitan areas. The next issue is that then you cannot recharge your car because not everywhere you have enough recharging stations, or you have to wait forever when you're in line and you have to wait until other people charge their cars when they may or may not be on time in different countries. As a German, of course, I'm insisting on being on time, but in other countries I learned that ish, for whatever reason, is a thing. Back to the topic. So when you have to go far, there's a good reason that you say you need more options than just e-mobility, and that means you get a hybrid. Still not a reason for an only by petrol fueled car on which this person insisted. And by the way, that is just adding, when you have a leader where the whole masculinity, the whole personality, the whole human being is obviously based on racing on motorways or freeways, which is not only incredibly dangerous, which is not only showing a really bad picture for the whole organization and a very bad example to others, which is also simply illegal in nearly every country. I know that Germany has some exceptions, but believe me, when you say we have no speed limits on the German Autobahn, that's wrong. 90% of all spaces are regulated. You have 10% where you can still race as fast as you can, but not many are left. So when you have someone whose whole entire being is based on, look at me racing in that car, you probably should rethink if this person should be a leader. Because that behavior normally needs help. And there are good psychologists out there who can help. That people have more in their lives than, look at me in the racing car. Because that is beyond outdated. When we look at the second case, where suddenly a meeting is in a 5-star hotel instead of a 4-star hotel, you again you easily could give a logical reason. It was a pharmaceutical company, and it was for their sales staff. When you work in sales in a pharmaceutical company, it often means you travel 5 days a week. On a Saturday, normally there is some symposium or ongoing training or work to do. So you often work 6.5 to 6.9 or even 7 days a week. I do not think that anyone in an organization has a problem if someone says, we have meeting in 4-star hotels, but for people who constantly work 20, 30, 50% more than others, these people can go to a 5-star hotel. I do not think that anyone would speak up. Of course, if you now have more than the sales team working long and unsociable hours, these people have the same right. So when you say, sorry, the plebs goes to 3-star hotels and the salespeople go to 5-star hotels, you again simply communicate, we don't care about the people, we only care about the profit. And although a company has to make money and no one debates that, if you deal with people in that way, this will backfire very quickly. What people simply do not like is when they find out afterwards, then they call you out, and then you make up some silly excuse. Because in this case, what they said, yes, it was a 5-star hotel, but the meeting rooms and the whole meeting area was only a 4-star area. And then people found out that the hotel, only to comply with corporate compliance 2 years ago, downgraded their meeting facilities from 5 stars to 4 stars only to be able to be booked by large corporations. And of course, that is simply a legal trick to comply. And people immediately find out when you try to get away with something, especially when you try to get away with something which is neither legitimate nor acceptable. Communicate openly and proactively when there is a proper reason. As soon as you have facts, proven evidence on your side, people will not speak up, or only the very weird ones will do, who you can't convince by facts. And these people are not taken seriously anyway. Be sure that you do not fall for the trap of trying to get away with something, because people today always find out. And then they will leak the material. By the way, the worst thing about leaking is to complain about leaking. Remember when Theresa May said, Theresa May had a memo which was sent to people that they should stop leaking material. And that memo was, you can't make it up, leaked to the general public. People leak material when they know that it is pointless to discuss it internally, because in the past you've shown that you obviously do not care. Be very sure that you communicate proactively and openly. Give them proof, facts and evidence, and people will follow. And the third aspect we have, where we have this mentality of accepted. It's just like, we are better than you. Leaders can do something else than the rest of the company. If you think that this is a proper approach to leadership, then either your leadership approach comes from the 1970s, where you could get away with that, or it comes from Hollywood movies. You probably have seen Wolf of Wall Street, and now you think you can yell at people, and because they want to make money as well, they will accept any leadership misbehavior because they are so keen to work with you. Here are the news. When you are in an area where a language is spoken which is, let's say, accepted in more than your country, for example, the English language. As soon as you have someone who's a native English speaker, your competitor on the job market in today's world is any company that accepts language, that accepts the English language as the language to be spoken in the office. Which means, let's say you're based in the UK or the US. It means you have probably whole North America, South America, basically you have global competition. That is a bit different when you, for example, have a German-speaking company. Then it's Germany, Austria, Switzerland, which is already a 120 million people area. And from there it gets quite thin on the market very quickly. When you speak English, then you have global competition. When your leaders misbehave, people will not only be frustrated, but they will shut the Zoom window after the meeting. They will go on a job website, and during the time you pay them, they are looking for their next job. And it's only one click away. And when you think that your approach of just accept it, we are better than you, leaders are allowed to do that, when you think that this is accepted anywhere, you have lost the plot a long time ago. Arbitrary behavior will never be accepted, and it always leads to non-productivity. I'll just give you an example. Let's just say on a Monday morning you make someone really angry, so they finish the day and they're all looking for a different job. So they get so annoyed that on Tuesday they say, oh sorry, I'm feeling a bit sick. So they go to the doctor and say, hello doctor, could you please just give me one of these prescriptions and say that I'm sick for, let's say, 2 days. And just to be out of personal liability, the doctor will say, oh, I think you look a bit stressed. Let's just do the whole week so you have a nice week off. And there you are. You go from productivity to, due to bad leadership, lower productivity, ending up with non-productivity. And the principle behind that is reciprocity. When leaders care about the people, people care about the leaders and the organization in which they work. And as soon as leaders do not care about the people and openly, even when they do it by coincidence, but openly show, or when they try to get away with something, they do it in a hidden way, but they get caught out later, so it's still openly. So when leaders show they do not care about the people will not care about the leaders or the organization in which they work. Reciprocity. Both-sided results. The time where you can say we have enough people to choose from, these times are over. We all remember, or let's say some remember, the end of the 90s where record unemployment was on the market and you could choose from a wide range of talent. It was the time when I left university and I got into the job market and everyone was happy when you just had a job and you were willing to accept leadership misbehavior left, right and center only to stay in your job. These times are over a long time ago. We now talk about on-site and remote leadership, sustainable leadership, different approaches to leadership. And reciprocity means you have to take care about them. And by the way, when you say they have to invest in the relationship, no, you have to invest first. The fact that the idea of they investing first is back from the 90s under record unemployment. That is not the case anymore. You are looking for talent, you have to invest first. So you take care first, and then when you did it right, you get something back. And the more negative experience people had with prior employers, even when this is not your fault, the more you have to invest to gain their trust. And by the way, there's more available about that. If you need more than what we talk about right here, just go to expert.nb-networks.com. Put your email address in there. Once per week, you get an email with all the publications we have publicly available only via this email expert letter, we call it. 100% content, ad-free guarantee. There's never any advertising in there. And of course, when you're looking for a trainer or a coach, you look for a professional speaker for your events, or you need someone doing consultancy, mentoring, project interim management, just drop me an email, nb@nb-networks.com, and I'm happy to have a chat with you, and we take it from there. It is now very important that from what you heard here, that you apply it in your organization. Apply, because only when you apply it in your organization, you will have the change that you want to see in your organization. I wish you all the best implementing this in your organization. Always available and happy to help you. And for this week, there's only one thing for me left to say. Thank you very much for your time.